Good evening, everybody. You're very welcome to the Music Capital Scheme information session for Award 2 and 3. I'm Deirdre Moynihan. I'm the Head of Programmes at Music Network, and I'm looking forward to telling you about both awards this evening. A lot of what I'll say will be applicable to both Award 2 and 3, and I'll certainly highlight where there is a difference between the two. So essentially, I'll be providing you with some background information, sharing how you can apply online, and highlight some key elements and bits of information about the scheme, which we feel will be useful for you to know and to be aware of when you're preparing your application. I'm going to be referring to both sets of guidelines as I'm talking through this session. So if you haven't already done so, you might like to download it, whether it's Award 2 or 3, or you could download both for now from the comment stream below this video. My colleague Jess is going to pop a link to both sets of guidelines in there now, and you might like to make some notes as we're going through this session. Also, just to mention to you that this session is going to be recorded, so if there's anything you want to watch back, you can do so. It'll be uploaded quite soon after the session finishes to our social media channels, so do keep an eye out there, and do also tell others who you feel this session may be of interest to. They might like to log on after today. And then the final thing to say before we get started is that if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the comment stream as we go along, and I will answer them at the end, or you can wait till the end to pop in your question. And of course, there will be an email address and a number given later in the session for any follow-up questions after the session ends. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now, and you might want to download the guidelines while I'm doing that. Okay. So, as I said, this is the Music Capital Scheme information session for Award 2 and 3. And this session is essentially for individual professional performing musicians. So the Music Capital Scheme is managed by Music Network, and it's funded by the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. Essentially, the scheme provides support to enable you to purchase musical instruments, but also support for one-off restoration or repair of an instrument. So that's something you mightn't be aware of. As I mentioned, tonight I'll be talking about Award 2 and Award 3. And so first of all, just to mention that Award 2 is for individual established professional performing musicians, and you can apply for up to 50% of the cost of the instrument. The total funding available for Award 2 for this round of the scheme is 185,000. Award 3 is for individual emerging professional musicians, and you can apply for 50% of the cost of the instrument, and the total funding available for Award 3 in this round of the scheme is 90,000. So who can apply? As I said, it's for individual professionals. You can be performing in any genre, so very open in that respect. You do need to be aged 18 or over, and you must be resident in the Republic of Ireland, although there are a number of exceptions that may apply at the discretion of the assessment panel. But we must stress that any application that might be accepted from someone who is not resident in the Republic of Ireland, you would need to demonstrate that should the award be made, it would be very beneficial for the arts in Ireland. So you would need to be performing and working in Ireland quite a bit. It's a completely online process. In order to apply, you can visit the Music Network website, browse to the What's On section, and you'll see the Music Capital Scheme page where there's a lot of information about the scheme. And just a reminder there, or a notification there, that the deadline for receipt of applications for this round of the scheme is 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the 25th of June. So do keep that in mind, as late applications will not be accepted. So we have Award 2 and Award 3 here this evening, and we're often asked, which award should I apply for? So what we've done is just put together a definition, if you like. So Award 2 is for individual, established, professional performing musicians. Now, you can be of any age and performing in any genre. You must have a demonstrable track record in professional music performance. You may earn your income not exclusively from your performance practice, though. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. And then you must identify and be recognized by your peers, by your fellow professionals, as a professional musician. So there's some key points relating to established musicians who would apply to Award 1. And looking then at Award 2, looking at Award 3, it's for individual emerging professional performing musicians. So let's look at the differences. So similarly, you can be of any age and performing in any genre. You can be in the process of mastering your music performance practice, and you're in the early years of establishing a professional performing career. So that is a key difference there. You're mastering your music performance practice, and although you have embarked on a professional performing career, you're in the early years of establishing yourself. You will have had some experience, but have not yet established a solid reputation as a professional musician. So that, again, is a key difference between the emerging and the established professional musician. Similarly, again, you must identify and be recognized by your peers as being a professional musician. So you need to carefully look at both awards and see which award is most suitable for you to submit an application. Looking at items that are eligible and ineligible, in addition to instruments, there are various elements of equipment or items of equipment that are eligible and ineligible. And if you go to page 2 of either set of guidelines, it's the same. You will see 2 tables for Award 2 and Award 3 guidelines that outline what items are eligible and what are ineligible to apply for under the Music Capital Scheme. Now we have reasons why your application may be ineligible. I suppose an obvious one is if your application is received after the deadline, after Tuesday the 25th, we cannot accept it, and so it would be ineligible. If your application is missing any of the essential support materials, and that's a key thing, we'll talk about the essential support materials a little later in the session. If your application relates to an instrument which has been purchased prior to an award being made, so you cannot apply for funding retrospectively. So you can't apply for funding for an instrument that you have already purchased. And then if your application does not comply with the award conditions, your application would be ineligible. And we'll talk about the conditions a little later in the session. So now looking at the application process in detail. As mentioned, you can apply and find out information about the Music Capital Scheme on our website. So if you browse to that page, you will be able to download the relevant Music Capital Scheme guidelines, whether that be Award 2 or Award 3 for you. You can very simply on that page then create an account on the application portal. And once you're set up, you can fill in and complete your application form in stages. So you can save a draft as many times as you want until you're completely happy with your application. And you can also upload your essential and optional support materials as well in stages. So it's very flexible in that respect. Again, please submit your application before the deadline. Well in advance of the deadline is what we'd recommend, because you just don't know what could happen on the day. You could have a technical issue, the internet might be down, and you'll have put in all this work to submit your application. And if you can't submit it because you've left it close to the deadline, it would be a real pity. So do submit well in advance. And if you're having any issues, you can get in touch with Music Network, and there's time for us to help you. What I wanted to say as well, once you've hit apply and submitted your application, you will receive within a minute or two at most an automated confirmation email from Music Network, which is evidence that your application has been submitted. If you don't receive that email in your inbox, check your spam folder. If there's no email there, please get in touch with Music Network because it means we haven't received your application. And then all applicants, whether you be successful or unsuccessful, will receive results of the assessment by email in September. So do keep an eye on your email account again in September. So just to tell you a little bit about the application form, a brief overview. There are 5 sections to the form. The first is very straightforward, your contact details. Section 2 relates to your career. So you're asked, what is your principal instrument? What is your primary genre? You're asked to upload your CV in section 2 and also to submit 2 recordings to showcase what you'd like to share with the assessors. You're asked if you own the instruments to describe them. If you own some instruments already, maybe you're ready for an upgrade. And so it kind of is part of your story if you own an instrument that is currently maybe not fit for your playing ability. You're asked to outline your career, so to kind of describe, I suppose, the types of scenarios you play in professionally. Like, is it as a soloist? Is it in a small ensemble? Is it with do you collaborate with others? It may be all of these things, but it's really to provide a picture of your career path over the past 3 years. And you're also asked to outline your expected career path over the next 3 years. So to kind of create a picture of where you see things going for you over the next 3 years and how that will impact on your work. You're asked to outline how much of your work will be in Ireland. So that relates to the point I made earlier about some exceptions being made for people who may not be resident in the Republic of Ireland. And finally, you're asked in section 2 to highlight up to 10 recent and upcoming performances. So it's really about giving a picture to the assessors of where your career has come from and where it's going. Then section 3 is all about the proposed instrument for purchase. So you're asked to outline, what instrument you intend to purchase and some details around that. You're asked to submit 2 quotations, and these are part of the essential support materials and must be submitted. So I'll talk a little bit about them when we come to the essential support materials. You're asked how you will fund your 50% of the contribution towards purchasing the instrument. As you know, you can apply for 50% from the Music Capital Scheme, and the remaining 50%, you may have confirmation that this funding is in place already. You might have savings in place which will fund it, but it's not necessary to have it in place already. You have to just have a clear plan outlined as to how you're going to fund the 50%. It might be upcoming work, be that performance or teaching, or you might have savings, you might plan to take a loan. There could be a variety of ways in which you will fund the 50%, but you just have to outline your plan to show that it is feasible for you to fund the 50% of the instrument you intend to purchase. And then you're also asked in section 3 to outline the difference having this instrument would make to your career. And so that's a really good opportunity to make your case as to why your application should be funded. Moving on then to section 4, there's a checklist there. So you can confirm that you've uploaded all of the essential support materials. That's a handy checklist. And then you can upload some additional optional support materials if you choose to do so, if there are some things you'd like to share that you feel really strengthen your application. And then finally, section 5 is an optional section in itself. It's, I suppose, for research purposes, and we invite you to share any feedback about the Music Capital Scheme that you would like to share with Music Network and the department, and we welcome all feedback. And any feedback shared here will not impact in any way on the assessment of your application. Now, these are just a number of simple ways in which you will be entering information into the application form. I'm sure you'll be familiar with many of them. You'll see 2.2 there is you select from a drop-down menu. 2.3 is a text box with, just to draw your attention to, they will all have word count limits on the bottom right-hand corner. So do take note of that before you start completing those text boxes, because you will have to go back and edit it if you exceed the word count on any of the text boxes. 2.4 is an example of simple radio button selection, and depending on what answer you select, whether it's yes or no, a text box will appear to allow you to elaborate on your answer. 3.5 is just a reference to confirm the amount or the cost of the instrument and the amount that you're requesting from the Music Capital Scheme in euro. So if you do, for example, purchase or intend to purchase an instrument from the UK, where the currency would be in sterling, do please convert to euro to make sure you can do your calculations accurately. And you'll see there that you cannot apply for more than 50% of the cost of the instrument. And just to say that if, for example, the supplier that you go to offers you a discount, it might be a 5% discount or a 10% discount on the quotation price, you do need to deduct that supplier discount before calculating the 50% split. So this question here, 2.3, is just an example showing you how you will be uploading your files within the application form as well. You're asked there for 2 contrasting audio-video recordings. Sometimes we're asked, what do we mean? What is meant by contrasting? I suppose it's about showing different aspects of what you do to showcase your work. It might be different performance styles. It might be you perform in 2 different genres. You might want to show different techniques that might be relevant to the instrument that you're intending to purchase. So just be mindful of what you submit there, submit the best of what you do, and that it really helps to make your case when the panelists listen to it or view it on YouTube or wherever you share your video or audio. Beneath where you select the file to upload, you can see there's a lot of text there. So just to mention that many of the questions will have tips and kind of helpful reminders underneath the question itself. So do read those, as they can be very useful as you go along. Reminders of what are in the guidelines, for example. You can see there you can upload up to 3 files. So that would be 2, for example, MP3 files, and the third would be the Word doc, which describes the recordings that you're sharing, listing the personnel involved, the title of the piece, for example, maybe the composer. If you want the assessment panel to listen to a very specific part of that recording, it might be a longer recording, you might want them to listen from 10 minutes to 14 minutes, put that in the Word doc, and the panelists will go straight to that part of the recording. And just to say that if you are uploading links rather than MP3 files, for example, linking to a SoundCloud audio file or a video file on Vimeo or YouTube, make sure that those links are publicly accessible. Sometimes they might be password protected, and you mightn't, think of that. If they're password protected, do send the password so that, the assessors can access and listen to and view the files that you're sharing. So, oh yes, just before we moved on to the next slide, I just wanted to show you where you'll be saving a draft. So you might decide to open up the form and just fill in section 1, and you're going, how can I save a draft now? I want to prepare some of the materials and come back. You scroll all the way down to the end of the form, and you'll see that button there on the right-hand side with the option to save a draft or apply. You can save a draft as many times as you want. Once you hit apply, you can't obviously edit any further. So really be sure that it's the final version that you're submitting when you click apply at the end of the application form. So the essential support materials are really important to be aware of, because, as I said, you must submit all of the essential support materials. They're very similar for both awards, but there is one additional, as you see at the bottom of the slide, for award 3. So for both award 2 and 3, you're asked to submit your CV, so a maximum of 2 pages, and just to list, the things that showcase your track record, listed in reverse chronological order, that really, gives a picture of what it is your experience levels are. We mentioned already the 2 contrasting audio and video files, which you can upload via the application form. Now, 2 quotations for the proposed instrument for purchase. It's really important that you include 2 quotations, and there are no exceptions to this. And the idea being that it's about demonstrating value for money. So you must submit 2 quotations, sometimes from separate suppliers. Sometimes people say, well, we're getting a bespoke instrument designed, and that's fine, absolutely welcome to do that. But you still need to submit a second quote for an instrument that is the closest comparable instrument to the instrument you are intending to get designed. So really important, no exceptions to that. You have to submit 2 quotes. Quotations can be emails or letters from suppliers, or they can be website screenshots from the 2 separate suppliers. Just make sure that the quotes, the emails or the letters or the screenshots, that they all include the name and details of the supplier, the details of the instrument you wish to purchase, that might be make and model, for example, and the cost of the instrument itself. Sometimes the quotes will include, sometimes the quotes will include shipping costs. And just to mention that shipping costs are ineligible to apply for under the Music Capital scheme. So if your quote includes shipping costs, you deduct that before you work out the 50% split. So just be mindful of that. And then, as I mentioned, there is one additional essential support material for Award 3. And that is that you're asked to submit 2 letters of recommendation from peers or mentors who recommend you as a musician. So sometimes people have sent character references. I know it sounds of it, but it is really about, someone who can speak to your expertise and your promise as a musician. And yes, so 2 letters of recommendation uploaded for Award 3. As mentioned, you can upload additional support materials, up to 5 files. These could be anything that you feel will help strengthen your case, and you can see some examples there, the reviews, adjudication sheets, publicity material, for example. Now we're coming to the assessment procedure. So I just wanted to draw your attention to the selection criteria. They are slightly different. Some are the same for Award 2 and 3, and some are slightly different. You can see in the 2 tables there, the key difference is that the selection criteria for Award 2, track record of the applicant is weighted at 50% of the marks. Whereas for Award 3, that is subdivided into track record, allocated 25% of the marks in the assessment process, and demonstrated potential and career development plans of the applicant will be allocated 25%. So you can see a clear difference there in terms of the criteria. And it's really important to keep the criteria in mind for the award you're applying for, because the assessment panel will assess your and all applications based on these specific selection criteria. So just to very quickly go through the conditions of Award 2 and 3. So these are applicable to both awards. I've touched on many of these points already, but just to quickly run through them, you can apply for up to 50% of the instrument cost, but the applicant must demonstrate how the remaining 50% will be funded. You must show regular use of the instrument in the Republic of Ireland. You're asked to outline that you will take care of the instrument, so your plans to insure the instrument and to repair and maintain the instrument as required. Now, if you're successful, within 2 weeks of receiving notification of the results, you're asked to write to Music Network and arrange drawdown of the award. You would provide your bank details, your PPS number, and if your award is over 10,000, you're asked to supply tax clearance details. And then following the drawdown of the award, you're asked to source and purchase the instrument within 6 months. 1 or 2 more conditions to mention. Any proposed change to the instrument for purchase must be approved by Music Network in advance of the purchase. That may arise, for example, if you've received a quote at this point prior to the deadline of the applications being submitted, and then by the time the results of the assessment are known and you go back to that supplier, for example, that instrument may no longer be available and you may need to look at an alternative suitable instrument. If that happens, there's no problem, just come back to us and we'll together agree on an alternative that is suitable. Receipts submitted to Music Network within 6 months of the award payment. And just to say, if the final instrument cost is lower, you would be asked to return the surplus amount. So that might be that, I mean, it doesn't happen too often, but for example, the cost of the instrument might have come down in the meantime. And if that happens, the surplus amount is returned to Music Network and it's added to the fund for the Music Capital Scheme for that award for the next round of the scheme. If successful, all awardees are asked to provide very simple annual reports for a period of 3 years and to acknowledge Music Network and the department for a period of 3 years as well. And then I suppose it goes without saying, if, with non-compliance with the conditions of the award would need to be refunded. So finally, just to run through some tips for applicants. I think a lot of these are obvious, but I think we all need reminding. You've heard about the similarities and the differences between award 2 and 3. So really take time to consider which award you should apply for. Do not assume assessors are familiar with your work. So, you may have a high profile and be very well known, but the assessors can only assess the materials that are submitted as part of your application. So just be mindful of that. Read the notes on the application form. Those notes I'm referring to are the text notes and tips that appear beneath various questions on the application form. Some useful reminders there, as I said. The information in the application should be clear, concise, and relevant. Again, an obvious point, but just good to have it in your head when you're putting together your application materials. And then, of course, do get in touch if you have any questions at any stage. And I'm going to put up some contact details for you to take note of now as well. And of course, that all-important reminder, submit well in advance of the deadline. The deadline is there again, 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the 25th of June. Now, I just wanted to tell you about some additional applicant supports. As I mentioned, we're happy to hear from you at any stage by email or phone, and we will offer this support service right throughout the application window. The email address there, capitalscheme@musicnetwork.ie, or you can call 083 0955 956. In addition, Music Network is offering 2 free 1-hour Zoom seminars for applicants interested in applying to award 2 and 3. We have one on writing skills for applicants, so that would be really useful for helping you prepare your application. And that is happening on Tuesday, the 28th of May. There's also a session on the creation of recordings on the 6th of June. Now, the recordings that you're submitting, just to say, they're not meant to be studio quality recordings, but just recordings of a quality that you can hear clearly the playing that you are trying to showcase your work. And so you could receive some useful tips on how to create recordings if you attend that session on the 6th of June. You can register attendance on musicnetwork.ie. Following that, we are also offering free one-to-one Zoom and phone sessions with the presenters of those 2 seminars, and you can book a session by contacting us on programsadmin@musicnetwork.ie, and we will hopefully be able to arrange a session between you and your presenter that you are interested in meeting. So at this point, we've come to the end of the session. I'm going to see if there's any questions. If you have any questions, do type them in now. But look, a lot of times the questions arise when you start to really get into preparing your application. So feel free to contact us at any point on the email address and phone number listed there below, and we'll be very happy to do our best to answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to stop my screen share now, and I'm going to see if we have any questions. If you just bear with me one moment. Okay, I think we have a few questions here. Is there a cap on how much your instrument can cost? There isn't a cap as such, but I suppose be mindful of the amount that's available in the fund, and it's very competitive in terms of the volume of applications and the quality of applications. And whereas there isn't a cap, you might want to consider how much of the fund, could realistically be allocated to one person. But that said, it's entirely up to yourself what you feel is appropriate there. Another question, how do I know if I'm emerging or professional? Any tips on trying to decide which category I'm in? You may have seen, perhaps you joined the session a little bit late, there's 2 slides at the beginning, very close to the beginning of the session, where we outlined, I suppose, the key differences between being an emerging and an established professional. So I won't go through that again here, but if you refer back to the beginning of near the beginning of the session, you'll see our advice there on how you can come to a decision. How can I access the PowerPoint that you were displaying after the talk? Yes, so this entire talk will be uploaded to Facebook Live, and well, it's on Facebook Live now, but it will remain on Facebook, and it will also be on other social media channels of Music Networks and on our YouTube channel, so you can access the full presentation there with all of the slides. For question 2.4, do you own instruments? Should you mention any instruments you own, or only refer to your primary instrument for which you are applying for? You can mention any instruments you own. It's just about painting a picture of, where you're coming from, where you're currently at, and, why you feel you would benefit now from, acquiring a new instrument, a new primary instrument. But I suppose the main thing is the primary instrument if you currently own a version of that and you want to upgrade it. Could you please recap again on the difference between award 2 and 3? As I said, we have the key points, key differences between being established and emerging on those slides, clearly laid out if you want to refer back to the start or near the start of this session. The other main difference is that in the essential support materials that you're asked to upload 2 letters of recommendation as a emerging artist. So there's one extra essential support material, which is the 2 letters of recommendation. The other thing to draw your attention to between the 2 is look at the selection criteria. As I said, the key difference between the selection criteria, which is the basis on which your assessment of your application will be carried out by the assessors, is track record is allocated 50% if you're applying for award 2, and that is your track record. If you're applying for award 3, that is subdivided into 25% for your track record and 25% for your demonstrated potential. So I hope that answers your question in terms of the key differences. Do the 2 quotes need to be at exactly the same price? If they're not, should you request up to 50% of the average price? The 2 quotations do not need to be at exactly the same price, and very often, that wouldn't be the case. You're not obliged to say you would prefer the lower price or the higher price. You may have an instrument in mind, a specific instrument in mind, and you get a quote for that. When you're supplying a second quote, it may be for a similar instrument, which, your preference may be one or the other, and you can specify that. So I would say, depending, if you have a very particular instrument in mind, and that is, you would take 50% of that cost. If not, the panel will make a decision about 50% of the cost you submit. It could be the average cost. I mean, I don't think it won't be the average cost, because then you're neither here nor there, you're falling between the 2 stools. But, do feel free to say if you have a preference for one of the instruments that you have supplied a quote for. Is it possible to get feedback on a previously unsuccessful application from the last round, please? So feedback is available from a period of I think it is 6 weeks off the top of my head, after the application has been, after the results have been communicated. So I think you may have missed that window by quite a bit now, but do get in touch with us, and we'll advise. If you have specific questions, we can certainly advise, offer any advice we can to you. So I would just suggest to get in contact, but the window for feedback is up to, I think it's 6 weeks after communication of results. Is it possible to access just the slides as a file and to get them sent to my email? Not currently. It'll be uploaded, as I said, as available on the video, and you'll be able to scroll through the slides by just pausing the video and looking at it that way. So that is the current way we'll be sharing this session and the associated slides. So we have one more here. Can one application be for a few products, example 2 or 3 cases for a full live setup? Sorry, that just moved there, just bear with me. Can one application be for a few products, 2 or 3 cases for a full live setup of instruments and equipment that are regularly used together, or does it have to be just one product? Well, I suppose it depends on the way you make your case. If they're necessary to operate together, you could apply for more than one item. Like, for example, people may apply for an instrument and case, or it might be a bow and violin, depending on what you feel and make a case for needing. But it would have to be very closely related. You can't apply for multiple instruments. But if, for example, it's electronic equipment and several items are needed in order for it to work, as expected, that would be considered under the same umbrella, for example. We have another question. I need a guitar for both music therapy work. I am a student, and also for my own songwriting performing. The music therapy would be for work, and the songwriting is more of personal expressive thing. Will the music therapy be okay to mention? I mean, absolutely, to mention, areas you work in, as you said, music therapy. It is about providing instruments for performance. So you would have to make, a very strong case that you would be performing professionally. But absolutely, it's all part of your career development to mention other elements that you work in and other areas that you work in, as you mentioned there, the music therapy. But just to be mindful that it is for professional performing musicians, so there would need to be a very strong case made that you will be performing professionally with the guitar. Now, I think we may have come to the end of the questions, so I will wrap it up now, but just to say that there's no problem getting in touch. The contact details listed, and we'll be happy to answer any questions as they occur after this session. At this point, it just, I think, leaves for me to say, on behalf of Music Network and the department, we wish you great success with your applications. We're looking forward to hearing from you and to seeing lots of applications being submitted. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the session. I hope you found it useful, and you will be able to watch it back online shortly. Okay, thank you very much, and best of luck with your application.